So this video is looking at numerical measures and something called the 5-number summary, and then also looking at making box plots. So first, some numerical measures. First is the mean. This is just another term for the average. And I'm sure you've heard of mean, median, and mode before, but the mean is the average. The symbol for us right now we're going to use is X with a little line over it. The way you read that is X bar. And in statistics, you use X bar when you have when you have the mean of a sample. And right now we're going to treat everything that we're working with like it's a sample from a larger population. Those are technically the formulas, but you never really need to write the formulas out for the mean. Another common measure of center is the median. So the median is the center value. If you have a list of numbers and there's an odd number of things in the list, then you go to the one that's in the exact middle. If you have an even number of numbers in your list, then you take the two that are in the middle and just find the average of those two. Add the two of them and divide by 2. M is another way to think of M is that it's the midpoint of all of the observations. It's the middle of the data. It's the 50th percentile. It's exactly halfway through. Well, the first and third quartiles are like the midpoint of everything below the original median and the midpoint of everything above the median. So the median and the quartiles are big important percentiles. The first quartile is exactly 1/4 through the data. 25% of the way through. The median is the overall middle of the data, 50% through, 50% of the way through, and the third quartile is 75% of the way through or 3/4 through. Range, we've calculated before, is max minus min. Then there's something called the interquartile range, or IQR. That only measures from Q3 to Q1. So you do Q3 minus Q1. And we use that sometimes in different circumstances, like if there's outliers or skew, because that only looks at the spread of the middle 50% of the data. So that even if there's weird things going on at one end or the other or both, you still get a feel for how spread out the numbers are in the middle. And then the 5-number summary is just the name we give for the set of numbers where you're looking at min, Q1, median, Q3, and max. The min is the 0th percentile, Q1 is the 25th percentile, median is the 50th percentile, Q3 is the 30th or 75th percentile, and the max is really like the 100th percentile. So we can make box plots using the 5-number summary. To create a box plot for a data set with no outliers, so there's no outliers in this, we just plot the values of a 5-number summary, and we have to label an axis and a scale. When you mark your scale in the number line, make sure you're marking like consistent values, not just marking the 5-number summary. But the idea here is if I want to find that 5-number summary, I need to type in my data. And then to get the 5-number summary, we do stat, we arrow over to calc, and we want the very first thing there, 1var stats. And my numbers are in list 1, so I want to leave that. And this frequency list right now, and for the most part, we want to leave blank. And then I hit enter. Those of you who don't, hop right to that menu. When you do stat calc and hit enter, you're going to have 1var stats pop up. Just in a screen like this, you just need to hit second 1 to tell the calculator what list you want to calculate the values for. And the mean I mentioned before is the X bar. That would be the mean, but right now I care about this 5-number summary. So there are my min, Q1, median, Q3, and max. So now I can see, okay, my lowest number on my list is 32, so I'm going to maybe go down to, now I can see the lowest number on my list is 32, so when I write my scale, I know I want to go probably at least down to 30. My max is 64, so I want to make sure I go past 64. So what I am doing is saying, okay, I'm just going to count by 5s. So there's my scale consistently labeled. Then, if there are no outliers, which this one doesn't have any outliers, you would just graph the min with a little tick mark and the max with a little tick mark. The Q1, the median, and the Q3 get marks that are a little bit longer, and then we make a box out of them. So this box is sometimes called the IQR box. And then you stretch from the Q1 all the way down to the min, and Q3 all the way up to the max. And if you ever heard people talk about a box and whisker plot, they call these the whiskers. We can make this graph on our calculator pretty easily. My data is already in there. And if I want to see this, I can go to second y equals, hit enter, And I want to make sure my graph is on, and then you can't arrow down. You'd think you'd be able to, but you have to arrow to the right to get down there. And I never want to choose this one, the one in the middle, this fifth one here, because that does not show outliers. And we always want to mark our outliers if we have any. So I'm going to always choose that one. And then once everything's set up, right now, if you just hit your window, like the standard window a lot of times we're on is from -10 to 10, -10 to 10, you won't see it. But thankfully, one of the other zoom buttons, it's number 9, whoops, is a zoom that fits our window perfectly to whatever data is in our lists. So I'm going to do zoom 9, or you can just hit zoom and then the number 9. And now my window's perfect. If I hit the trace button, I can actually get those 5 values exactly. You could actually skip doing that 5-number summary step if all you need to do is make a box plot. And then we're done. Now, if a set of data has an outlier or several outliers, we need to be careful how we draw the whiskers. We always want to plot the outliers separately, and then those tails or whiskers go not all the way out to that outlier, but to the next either smallest or largest point, depending on which end of the spectrum you're on. So, they already did the 5-number summary for us, but 22 is an outlier. So first of all, I'm going to plot 22 as a separate dot. And now my max still goes to 64, my Q3 is still at 58, my median is still at 53.5, my Q1 is 46, but now my other tail only goes out not all the way to 22, but just to the next biggest point. So that's how far you draw that next tail. Okay, and then last one here, this time they tell us there are 2 outliers, 24 and 62. Here's my data. Again, they already have the scale ready to go. So now 24 is an outlier and 62 is an outlier. So on both ends, what I'm going to do is instead of having my whisker go all the way down to 24, it's only going to go to 36. Oops. So there's my low end at 36. Now my Q1, my median, and my Q3 are the same, but when I go try and draw this next whisker, I can't go to 62 because that's an outlier. So then I go to the next biggest value. Well, the next biggest value happens to be the same as Q3. So it's almost like that Q3 and that right end of the bar just got like mashed together. So we just don't draw anything. And that won't happen often, but I wanted to make sure we talked about one. And that's you through numerical summaries and box plots. The last little piece I wanted to show you is if you wanted to ever make 2 box plots at the same time, we call them side-by-side box plots. I've already put in, this is the same list of numbers from earlier. I added a second class or second group to this. So I've got both sets of numbers typed in. You would go to second y equals like we did before. Make sure the first plot is turned on. Make sure that you have the box plot with the outliers set and list 1. And if you zoom 9 right now, you'd see your box plot. What I want to do is go and turn a second plot on. So hit enter so that turns on. Again, I want the outlier, the box plot with the outliers. And then I want my X list to be L2. Oops. And if I hit zoom 9, there are my 2 box plots. And then now you can use trace, and it's the same, similar scale as before. My low end min is at 30. My high end for that one is at 60. For the other one is 64. So I'm going to use that scale. And then you really can just use trace to get all those points drawn in. So my outlier is at 30. Then I can fill in my min, Q1, median, Q3, max to get that one graphed. And I can do the same thing for the other one and just trace through those 5 values. But make sure you're hitting trace so it's going exactly to those values. If you just come to that screen and arrow around to try and like get close, it's not going to necessarily give you the right values. So like that's going to say 44.82 and you're 44.83 and we can't get it for sure exactly. Just do the trace button. So that's for side-by-side box plots. What I would do when you're done is go down to that second plot and turn that second one off. Otherwise, it's going to keep trying to graph one there, and if you ever clear out that data, you might get errors.